My name is Robin Vogel, and I'm the founder of Come Back to Love. And I've been doing this work for 25 years or more. And maybe I'm going to stop counting soon. I have developed a program over the years called Reboot Your Libido. I got into this work actually for many different reasons. I'm a love and intimacy coach. I'm an internal family systems psychotherapist. I'm a tantra educator, and I bring all of these things together to support not only women, but all in removing the obstacles to love. And I have some specialized work that I've been doing with women over many, many years. And what got me really focused on that particular piece was, first of all, I have a lot of ease with sex and all the things that our bodies do and don't do are very easy for me to talk about and talk to others about. But also, I went into menopause really early, and I'm sharing this here because maybe one of you or more of you have had the experience of going into what they used to call premature ovarian failure. Like those words should not even all be like put together in a row. But that's what happened to me when I was in my early 30s and trying to get pregnant and wanting to get pregnant. And I had, some blood work done just to kind of figure out, just to see what was happening. I didn't even think anything was wrong, quote unquote. But next thing you know, I had all of these doctors sort of swarming around me, telling me that, I'm failing at this and this is, I'm never going to get pregnant and all this stuff. Well, I did get pregnant on my own, and it has been a mystery to me why I went into menopause so early. However, I have learned so much about hormones and the stress hormone that probably was making things a little bit wonky, but also that it's not that early to go into menopause at 40, and that's around the time that I went into menopause. So one of the things I've always been a stand for is what the possibilities are when when you reach or have the experience of menopause, not bleeding for a full year, and perimenopause, because the people that I work with would always say things like, the women like, okay, well, I'm in menopause, it's all over. You know, it doesn't matter anymore. I don't feel sexual. I have no drive. And anyway, I'm in menopause, so it's all over. And I would just hear that like over and over again. And I found like Megan, you have this mission, which I appreciate about the orgasm gap. I started to have this mission of like, holding a sign up or, a billboard saying like, hey, it's not over. Like I remember spending some time with my grandmother who had an incredible relationship and sex life until she was in her 80s. And I remember standing in the kitchen with her once when I was like a teenager, and I was like, I have a question. And she's like, yeah. And I said, can you still like, you know, and she said, have an orgasm? Yes. And she was like in her early 80s. And I was like, yes, okay. So anyway, it feels like a really important piece to communicate that sex drive doesn't have to end, that arousal can continue, that a good sex life is completely possible with yourself and with a partner or partners, and that to really release all of the influence that the media has on this topic. Like there's so much that gets told, even in your doctor's office, that is not necessarily accurate and true. And it's really important to come back to your own body and your own experience and also be inspired by those of us that went through this experience that, I mean, have some things changed? Yes, but not that much, to be honest. And I'll talk about that. So that's my introduction. I'm not going to share slides with you, but I am going to use my notes to make sure I cover everything. Also, I want to say before I just continue going on, I am all about relationship, intimacy, connection, communication, and I love seeing you on video. So if you're sitting there with your audio on and your video off, and you feel like showing me your beautiful face, that will be so lovely. I want to invite you into some courage. And thank you for those of you that are on video. I'm really happy to see you. Thanks. Yeah, so Megan did such a great job at talking about the hormonal shifts and how stress kills desire and make things very wonky in your body. I want to say and just emphasize again that nothing's wrong. Like even when you're in perimenopause and things can start to feel a little bumpy. Maybe you're having some hot flashes and things are changing. Like it's a transition period to something new. And I think that's the most important takeaway is that nothing's wrong, but there is a transition happening. And, if your desire has shifted or your body is responding differently, if intimacy feels confusing or distant or pressured or overwhelming, it's not that there's anything wrong. It's just that you're in a transition. And there's so much that is in transition when we're in the middle part of our life, right? Megan named a lot of them. But to add a couple more, there's like identity shifts. Like if you look at, maiden, mother, crone, there's like shifts in our place in the world, in society, in our family, in our communities, and that impacts us. There's life stage shifts, of course, from, if you have children to raising children to empty nest, and all of these things are impacting us. And I think some of the language that I hear out there is like, I want to get back to normal. I want to get back to what it was. And it's not about getting back to when you were 15 and able to like maybe you had this experience like come really quickly and have this like explosive orgasm really fast. It's not about getting back to that. It's actually about taking a deep breath and arriving where you are now and getting that, yeah, it's a transition, but it's an amazing transition. Like menopause calls us, and midlife also calls us to go deeper. It calls us to slow down. It calls us to emotional safety. Like Megan was talking about nervous system regulation, which, we're hearing all over the place these days because it's so important, especially if you've had some trauma in your life. When you're in this stage of life, it's time to pay attention, to go inside, again, to slow down, to look at what emotional safety means, and how that correlates with intimacy and a great sex life, whether it's, again, with yourself or with a partner or partners. This stage of life calls for deeper connections with yourself, with other people. It calls for more honesty. It calls for more vulnerability, more truth telling, more authenticity, less performance, less, I have to do these things to get ahead and make this happen and look good. And there's a point where it's just not about all of that anymore. And that all contributes to an incredible experience of intimacy. When orgasm is not the destination, where intercourse is not the destination, where success or a victory of, everything you see in the movies is not the destination, you get to relax and be yourself. And I call it a steep invitation. It is an invitation to yourself to let go of, again, these expectations of pressure, of performing, of to get it right, of to even have an orgasmic peak when you're having a sexual experience. Touch without an agenda is an amazing experience. I remember letting go of touch with an agenda of having an orgasmic peak or sharing one with a partner to touch just for touch's sake. Like it's so amazing to have your body touched and stroked and experience all kinds of different types of touch and notice how your body responds and reacts to that. And touch without an agenda gives you the spaciousness to really get to know yourself. Connection without expectations, same, sort of same thing. Sensuality and even sexuality without outcome. Whatever, I mean, outcome is sort of like also looking at, is also talking about a goal. And this all invites us to the present moment. Now, I'll bring Tantra in for a moment, which is a big confusing topic. I'll just say briefly about Tantra. It's a deep spiritual practice. It's about living in the moment and in the present. It's about having a good life right now. And it involves breath and sound and movement practices that enable you to awaken life force energy. And so I always say to people, like, everything is good when you practice Tantra. Like your food is good, sex is, good or better. Waking up and taking a breath of fresh air is better as well. So with Tantra, I have really learned over the years, one, to regulate my nervous system. very much so. And two, to come to the present moment. So when we talk about, and when I talk about, touch without an agenda, connection without expectation, and just all of it without outcome, it means be in the moment. Like, how are things feeling in this 10 seconds? What feels good right now? Not, am I doing this right? Am I getting the technique right? Is my partner enjoying it? Sometimes you're enjoying yourself and your partner's not enjoying themselves. Okay, but you're enjoying yourself, and that's important. That's a piece of it. So let me just see what else I want to share with you. So Megan talked a lot about regulate. Regulate before you relate. Breathe, take a warm shower, move your body, make sure your inbox is empty. Only kidding, because that's absolutely impossible. Soften your jaw, your shoulders. Think about what makes you feel warm and connected to yourself. Rebuild from the inside out. Intimacy with a partner improves when we rebuild intimacy with ourselves. And that means caring and loving ourselves. That means looking, caring for, and loving ourselves. It means looking at the ways that we haven't been loving ourselves and doing the emotional healing work to love yourself even more. It means looking at self touch and self exploration without shame. Shame is a big piece that can show up here and around menopause, perimenopause, sex, all of that can carry so much shame. And it's time in midlife to ask yourself what needs healing now. I often, when I'm meeting a potential new client, I'll ask them how old they are, not because I care about their exact age, but there's something about noting, like, a lot of my clients are in midlife, and there's something about noting, like, okay, like, what do I want now? Because the next phase is shorter than the phase we've been in. And there's no denying that. At 60, I just turned 60. And so I always, like, very gently and lovingly say, like, what do you want? Like, now is the moment to say, what do you want? And what's possible? Because for me, anything is possible as long as we're present, aware, and have the intention and have the desire to do the healing work. So, yeah, so looking at that shame piece, so noticing if there's still shame that you're carrying around in your body about any of these aspects. It's just something to, like, make a note and think about and plan for doing the healing work. All right, I'm going to take like another minute or two because I know we want time for questions. So, I want to talk about communication. Some of you are partnered, some of you are not partnered. And a lot of times, oh, this happens to me, I don't want to say often, but more often than I would like, I get a phone call from a partner who's upset about their female partner's lack of desire, arousal, lack of arousal, or menopausal symptoms. And they want me to fix it. And they're trying to set up and sessions that, it just gets all very enmeshed. And what ends up happening, which is so, well, what I end up experiencing, which is so sad, is when I speak with the woman in the particular relationships, they feel like so apologetic and like they're doing something wrong. Again, shame is present. They feel really frustrated with their bodies and they're getting the message that something's wrong with them. And so, again, big piece of healing to have a completely new perspective on the fact that actually you're in a transition and nothing is wrong. And being able to communicate, opening up, again, deeper connection, communication, honesty, vulnerability. Instead of, I'm sorry, I'm having, sweats every night and drenching the bed, it's like, okay, this is what's happening in my body right now. Like, it'll change, but right now, my body's getting hot, and then it cools off. And right now, I don't feel this strong desire in my yoni, and it takes me a little while to get juicy. Like, I always bring people back to the data. Like, what's the data about what's happening? Without shame, without judgment, this is the data. And communicating that is so helpful to yourself, to your own healing and embracing of what's happening right now, but also and also to in your relationships for sure. So the vulnerability builds closeness, and not talking about it creates distance. So really encouraging. direct and honest communication about what's happening. And with that, I think I just want to close by inviting you into trusting that your body's in a transition, that you can change your experience. There are so many different ways, actually, between the work that Megan does and the work that I do. You can approach your symptoms and what's happening in your body, physically, emotionally, from so many different angles. And it all, in my experience, is helpful in one way or another. I mean, I didn't start using compounding hormones until a year ago. And now I'm experiencing something even different than I've been experiencing for the last 20 years. So there's just so many different ways to approach being with your body and getting over some of the symptoms that are challenging and embracing where you are right now in your life and creating an incredible sexual experience because you deserve it. Like my grandmother, who was having orgasms into her 80s. Yes, to all of us having orgasms into our 80s. Absolutely, entirely possible.